Good evening, my friends. Today we are going to talk about Gaza and the end game. After 7 months have concluded in the relentless bombing of Gaza, the civilian population, nearly all the homes are gone, 10% of the population annihilated. Starvation is everywhere. And we've seen today how the Jewish settlers jumped onto the food truck and destroyed them that were heading to Gaza. Today is not about the war. Today is about the history of the struggle in Gaza. From someone that lived it all. I have to tell you before we get into the details of what happened in the past 100 years or so, we cannot go back and think about, oh my God, somebody was here 3,000 years ago, and therefore it is their land. Based on some religious interpretation, we have to agree to one thing, that there is about tens of thousands of religions on this planet. And every follower of these religion believe his faith is the true and only faith. So there is no telling who believes in what. But to take your faith to the extreme of annihilating and terminating other people, then you are committing a crime. It's just like if I believe in a God and told me to go to my neighbor's house, this guy is bad, he is abusing his children or whatever the reason is. He's got a lot of gold in there and cash, and go kill him, kill his children. They don't deserve to live. Take his money and go. Then I go and do what my God told me to do. Would I go to jail? You tell me. Or maybe, or maybe there are people from another religion that believe you guys are the devil and they need to kill you because their God wants them to do so. How would you feel about that? Even within the same religion, we have people that have different interpretation. Christianity is the dominant religion in the United States of America, and we have two theories. One that says we're going to focus on the Old Testament. This is the core of our religion, and God has ordered us to go to the homeland and kill their people and take their homes. And another group of Christians that say Jesus is about love, forgiveness, love your enemy, turn the other cheek. We're going to live in peace and prosperity. And those kind of people, about 50-50, I would say, in the Christian faith. So we really cannot talk religion because it is never ending argument or discussion. We need to look at the facts on the ground. We're going to start with the facts. Prior to 1948, there was a piece of land under the British mandate. It's a colony under the British mandate. And that included what we now know as Israel, West Bank, and Gaza. That's one small piece of land. All three pieces are one small piece of land. On this land lived approximately maybe 10% Jews prior to World War II, and the rest were of other religions. 20% Christians and a lot of non-believers, and some were Muslims. And if you add them up, it's a lot of people. The Jewish settlers started to come over to Palestine, and in 1948, they have established themselves an army, equipped, trained, organized, and the Palestinians had no army. They were not armed, primarily not armed. We haven't heard of any village that put resistance. The Israeli groups came in and burned and destroyed 2,000 or so Palestinian villages, and that's almost all the Palestinian villages, and ordered the people to leave. Whoever left, lived. Whoever stayed was killed. This is how it started. So this is what happened. A lot of people left and went to the neighboring land that was not occupied by Israel, mostly the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and neighboring countries like Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. And some went into Egypt. So the population of Gaza went from being few 100,000 people to about 2.5 million people today, because most of the residents are refugees that came, that actually ran from their homes to the nearest city that was not targeted by the Kahana, the Jewish terrorist group. After a few years, the Palestinians in Gaza, they decided, this is not our land, this is not our home, we want to go back to our original homes. So in 1953, they they walked through the border and wanted to go back into their homes. The Israeli forces fired live ammunition on the Palestinian civilians, unarmed Palestinian civilians, and killed almost 2,500 of them, and the Palestinians went back to live in Gaza. So that explains why the Palestinians of Gaza today don't want to leave their home again, because it happened to them before. Because when they left their homes in Palestine, the country that you call Israel, and came to Gaza, they have no way back. So today they say we are going to stay. However, in Gaza, they find themselves surrounded by the Israelis, the Israeli army that dictates their life, how many loaves of bread they eat, because they are besieged. They close and open the border between Gaza and Egypt as they please, actually, and they also close all the other borders and only let Palestinian workers to come in and work for very little and go home every night. Their population had been targeted just like the West Bank is being targeted today and has been for the past 50 years by the Israeli snipers. They launch terrorist attacks. They go into villages or into towns. They arrest people at random and take them for hostages and leave them there forever. So today there is tens of thousands of Palestinian citizens, half of them women and children, in the hands of Israelis. They call them prisoners, but really they are hostages because they are unarmed. And there is about 100 or so in the hands of Hamas. What I see in the war is that a lot of people are crying for the 100 Israelis, and the 10,000 or 20,000 Palestinians. They don't look like us. Who cares? So as Israel surrounds the city or the strip of Gaza, they have made life really impossible for the Palestinians in there. They burn their crops. They destroy their power plants occasionally. They snipe at people in the markets. They fire at any person that walks, whether armed or unarmed, and we've seen them firing from the watchtowers onto Palestinians that just simply walk into the border or to the wall that they have built around that city. So the young people of Gaza had to live in despair situation. They have no hope of the future. They have no will, no hope for a better life. They don't have any reason to live, to be honest with you, because they are traumatized almost every day. Some of them witness the arrest and torture of their family members or the destruction of their homes on the hands of the Israelis in a cold blood situations. So after so many years of abuse, aggression, torture, besieging the country, forcing hunger on the population, they chose to rebel. Prior to October 7, 2023, about weeks before that, the Israelis started, as a matter of joy, I think, they started torturing the Palestinian prisoners, regardless of who these prisoners were. They put them in solitary confinement. They started to abuse them. There was some rape cases as a matter of policy. I'm not talking about some weirdo jumping on somebody to hurt them. No, as a matter of policy, torture and abuse, as a matter of policy, the Israelis felt it will be a deterrent. It will be a deterrent for others. Because if you put fear in the community, you can control the community. But it did not work. So instead of putting fear in the community to decided to do something and to break out the siege. And the 1,000 Palestinian fighters that came into the settlements that surround the Gaza Strip, none of these people thought they will come back alive because the settlements was barricaded with an army of the elite army units of more than 15,000 people with the best equipment and the best of monitoring devices. So they thought maybe they will make a show. They will show up. They will have a fight, man to man. They will die. Some Israelis dies. It will stir up the trouble. It will stir up the situation, and hopefully, people will be talking about what's going on in Gaza, and they will get some help to break the siege. However, the performance of the Israeli army was really pathetic, with 1,000 people attacking 15,000 people with better, actually, Israeli army better equipped and better trained. They end up running from the battlefield. And the Palestinians overran their front lines and went into the villages. And we all know what happened after that. There was a fight between the Israelis and the Palestinian fighters, mostly from the air, in which the Israelis were firing on Palestinians that took, uh, refuge in any building they could see. So the Israelis end up killing, according to the Israeli police reports, ended up killing some of their own people. So October 7th was an attempt to break the siege. So I'm not saying this was a terrorist act, like most of you on the news think it's a terrorist act. Hillary Clinton goes up this week and say the Palestinians lost the opportunity of having their own state when my husband, according to Hillary, offered them a slave state. And the Palestinians, in which the Palestinians will live with a very good, merciful master that will treat them well. They was going to give them a country or a population center that they can control, that have no power whatsoever over anything. Only power they would have is the power to keep the population silent. She also mentioned that the people that are calling for the ceasefire in the universities are ignorant. and they are really stupid and they don't know the history. The history is the Jewish settlers came to Palestine. They killed, they destroyed 2,000 villages. The atrocities were a lot more than what it is now. At least in my lifetime, there was one that I pretty much watched over TV in 1982 as well. And the abuse did not stop in 1948. It continued in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and especially in Gaza Strip because it's a small strip and heavily populated. The West Bank is a little bit larger, but it's also heavily populated. So they would go and round people up for no reason during the resistance or not during the resistance, before any resistance was ever established. They have left the Palestinians under the occupation of the Israeli forces lived in fear, traumatized. You can kill a Palestinian on the street, and the only uh, thing they will ask you, did he suffer before he died? And if you say, no, he died quickly, and they tell him, you're so stupid, you should let him suffer before he died. This is the mentality of the people of the state of Israel today. This reminds me of 1982 when Israel besieged the city of Beirut, a heavily dense city of few million people, probably smaller than Gaza in size. The Israelis have been pounding the city with ammunition that will level residential buildings to the ground for 3 months. And at the time, President Reagan called Menachem Begin and he told him, you have to stop now. 15 minutes later, the bombing had stopped. And then they negotiated with the Palestinians to remove Palestinian fighters from Beirut, and it is not their city. They were guests in the city. They left. The Palestinians left. After they left, Israel allowed their thugs to go into Palestinian refugee camp of Sabra and Shatila in mass numbers, running the streets, entering homes, and killing everyone, men, women, children, infants, anything that moves. Because now the Palestinians have no arms. Nobody remembers that incident. I do remember, though, I was here in the United States watching TV on ABC. Peter Jennings was reporting live from the battlefield. The only thing that shocked me at the time was then Senator Joe Biden. When Reagan gave a rough message to Begin to stop, the conversation that Biden had with Begin, he told him, if I was in your shoes, I will kill all the civilians. It is reported. Actually, to be more accurate, I'm going to tell you exactly the same words he told them. He said, if Canada was to launch rockets over the United States of America, we will go into Canada, we will destroy everything, and we don't care if all the civilians were dead. That's the exact words. That's pretty much that telling him, go kill all the civilian. Don't listen to this Republican president that doesn't know what he is doing. That tells you what kind of a leadership we have in this country, and we have to clean it up. We need to clean up our leadership. Think of it. Do you want a psychopath in the White House? I don't. Another incident that another big name in American politics. Remember, all of these people come from the old school that have lost touch with reality. Lindsey Graham last week suggested that to make it short, we can drop the nukes on Gaza, like we did And he said specifically, why is it okay for America to drop the nukes on Nagasaki and Hiroshima and not okay for Israel to do the same? These are his words. What he did not know that back then America was the only one. It doesn't make it right, but it was the only one that has the weapons. Today, the weapons are in everybody's hand. How is that statement, just the statement, not the action? And it's a surprise. To me, it was a really, really surprise from somebody that called himself intelligent. Or I thought he was intelligent, probably. Maybe I don't agree with his politics, but I thought he was intelligent. For somebody to come out and say, I'm going to drop a bomb on Gaza, that is a message he is sending to every nation on earth. If you don't have nukes, you have no protection. That is telling Iran speed up the nuclear program, because if you don't have it, we're going to use it against you. Imagine if North Korea didn't have nuclear weapon, we would have taken her out. So this statement was not just a national threat for our national security. It was a threat. It was actually bad for the global security, because now in the world, everyone is going to try to acquire weapons of mass destruction somehow, and it's available. Even the people that have it will begin to think it wouldn't be a bad idea to pass it along, because because of the people that have it are willing to use it to destroy other people. So if you don't have nuclear weapon, count yourself out. So now we have a leadership from both parties in the United States of America that sold this country out to the highest bidder. If you ask them, who would you serve first? 80% would say we would serve Israel first and America second. But I think they're lying. The very first thing they do when they get elected, they start working on how do I get elected again? And then they find the Jewish lobby in this country with a lot of money and a lot of love for these kind of treason candidate candidates that are willing to sacrifice their benefit of their country for some other country, whether it's an ally or adversary. This administration and most of the ruling personnel from both parties come from the old school. They still think that the United States of America is the only super economic power in the world, super military power in the world, and they don't see that our power, military power, is becoming a liability and not an asset. When you put 10,000 people on a big, huge aircraft carrier, and in today's technology, anybody can fire any missile from 1,000 or 2,000 miles out, hypersonic missile can land on that aircraft carrier and destroy it, killing all the people. So really, if I was in the military, I will change my strategy. I will use smaller ships, smaller submarines, faster small boats, so that when we take a hit, we don't lose 10,000 people. And a hit we will take if we go to war. So our military power cannot, in today's technology, cannot make a big difference. We cannot conquer the people. We cannot continue to dominate. We need to work together with people, not dominate people. So the best thing for us when we go to the voting booth, we're going to have to think who is looking and fighting for America, and we vote for him. I don't really care if he was right or left, black or white, Hispanic or Asian. If you are an American citizen that want to live well in the future, you have to look to look after America first. If people stand out publicly and say, I am for Israel first, consider that a treason. They saying that because they sold their country to a foreign interest. My message, I'm not a politician, but I'm just making a recommendation here. I really want to end here. I have talked too much and I should have been more brief. I apologize. It's 25 minutes long. I wish to report again in a couple of weeks. Thank you.